Just saying hi to everyone there.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now we're starting for real.
Yeah, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good.
So we were just saying, we just did another Q&A in the ScreenX Theater. Now we're in the 4DX Theater. And I'm going to start with some curveballs in this one.
Great.
So Tron Legacy, you know how much I love that movie. And
You were there. You were on set. You were in the End of Line Club in 2009. A young Frosty.
That's true. I wasn't going to bring that up, but yes.
He was there. That's where I first met him.
Yeah, let's not get any further. No more stories on that. Actually, you know something? This is not what I want to do, but I'll say it anyway. That was one of early in my career. Started Collider in 05, and I remember being like, "Are you effing kidding me? I'm on the set of a Tron movie. I can't believe where I'm at." And I'm there with other reporters, and me and one other person. It was like 3, 4 in the morning, and everyone's tired. They want to leave. And Peter, it was Peter from Slash Film. Him and I were standing there and like, we don't want to leave. We want to be here all night. What the fuck are you talking about? We should stay. And everyone else was like, we're tired. I'm like, we're watching Tron.
Did you leave? Did you
we
go
had to
home?
leave. It was a big.
What you missed was on Tron Legacy, we had Daft Punk actually in that scene in the End of Line nightclub.
I was there for.
Were you there for that part?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, but I think what you missed
Oh.
was we were shooting with very early versions of the 3D camera, the Pace camera and 3D camera system, which was this giant refrigerator size thing that was very bulky. But at one point the cameras stopped working, so we had a little downtime. So we had Daft Punk, we had everyone in costume, we had a little dance party DJ'd by Daft Punk in the End of Line Club while we waited for the cameras to be fixed. And Rinsler, the actor who played Rinsler, was also a great break dancer. So we
You're
had
killing me
Rinsler
with this story.
break dancing in the club while Daft Punk was playing, all during a downtime. And you missed it because you went home early.
I want to reiterate, I voted to stay. I was adamant that we should stay. But so something you told me back in the day was that with Tron Legacy, Daft Punk gave you a whole bunch of demos of, for you to listen to, and a lot of them ended up in the film, but some of them didn't. So right now, you still technically have Daft Punk demos that the world has not seen or heard.
That is true. And they're great. Every once in a while I pull them out and listen to them. They're still fantastic 15 years later. Yeah. Those guys are geniuses. And leak them. Do you know someone tried to get me to leak them while I was making the movie? I got a email. Let's see, how did this work?
Was it a phishing email?
It was a phishing email that said, "Hey Joe, this is Daft Punk. We lost the masters to the music that we sent you. Can you please email us back those tracks?" And they tried to trick me. I didn't fall for it.
We're really off the rails in this theater. I'm so sorry, but I'm just going to say, 1 second. We can go a little longer in this one. I moderated an Interstellar 5555, which is their animated movie, and I got to moderate with their manager and who was it? The person who designed, I think, a lot of their costumes.
Cedric.
Yeah, and it was amazing for me. There's a packed theater, and there was going to be DJs after, but if you're a Daft Punk fan and you've never seen Interstellar 5555, my God, watch it. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic, yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next random thing. Oh, what is it like having directed one of the best movie soundtracks of all time? I'm glad you agree with me. Yeah, I'm talking Tron Legacy.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting process because Daft Punk had never done a soundtrack before. So it was all an experiment. And because they'd never done it before, they didn't know how film soundtracks were usually put together, in that, you work with temp music. You're like cutting the movie and you're putting other music on, and then your composer comes in and tries to figure out the tone you're going for and then writes something, and only at the very end do you get your score. Daft Punk did it different. While I was shooting, they were sending me those tracks constantly, just giving me, those 10, 20 tracks at a time. So I even would play them on set while we were shooting, just to kind of set the mood. But to have their music while I was shooting it and while I was cutting the movie together was amazing. So I never temped any other music into that movie. That movie was Daft Punk from beginning to end, and it just got better and better and better. So it was an amazing experience, and yeah, I'm thrilled that it continues to this day. In fact, the album they just sent it to me. I just got the double platinum album of Tron Legacy, which is I think 2 million copies.
I've listened to that soundtrack, and I'm not even BSing, probably 500, 1,000 times. I love that soundtrack.
What's your favorite track on it? I'm just curious.
Solar Sailor.
Solar Sailor. Nice.
This isn't a joke when I say, like, I don't have a favorite track, because all I do is start at track 1 and just hit play and just let it go, because there's nothing bad on that soundtrack. It's amazing. By the way, everyone, I appreciate you indulging me in the Tron Legacy. For everyone who hasn't seen Tron Legacy, please watch. So now that you've done flying with Top Gun Maverick and racing with F1, what's the next sport we should expect from you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I usually people say planes, cars, obviously boats are next, and so we talked about maybe what that could be in the other theater.
Well, we should just tell them that one of the things that you're developing right now is a Miami Vice movie.
Any Miami Vice fans in here? Okay, good.
Yeah. By the way, I was in the other theater. We were saying how it's not what I expected, because the other thing he's developing is a UAP project at Apple with Jerry Bruckheimer.
Which means unexplained aerial phenomena. So if you're following the whole kind of tic-tac phenomena, or yeah, so we're deep into that.
Do it.
Do it.
This is a very enthusiastic theater, and I like it.
Yes, I
For
like
real.
it too. And then, yeah.
What shot or sequence has been the toughest of your career so far?
You know, God, there's been a lot of challenging ones. We talked about Las Vegas in this movie, which was challenging. I always think about the sailing scene in Top Gun Maverick, believe it or not, where Penny takes Maverick out on the sailboat, which is at the Bay of San Francisco. That was, believe it or not, on that movie, that was probably the most challenging thing.
When you think about that film and all the stuff you did, how is that the most challenging?
Getting a sailboat to be fast is very, very challenging. And having Jennifer Connelly pilot that boat with Tom Cruise on it, kind of slipping on the deck, having cameras that were literally going underwater and coming back up, and then I'm on a boat next to it with a technocrane trying to get my shots, holding on for dear life while Claudio's pulling focus and setting exposure. Like, it was very complicated. But again, like you said, you would never guess in that film that was the hardest thing to pull off. So that's up there. Tron Legacy, just in the whole thing was hard because we were trying to do everything all the time, lit suits, 3D, digital actors, I was in a little over my head, and we shot it in 65 days, which is insane. Oblivion, we shot in Iceland, which was stunning, but the locations, putting a technocrane on a mountain, we had to helicopter stuff in. Only the Brave, working with fire, it's just so.
By the way, all these movies I strongly recommend. If you have not seen his resume, just throwing that out there.
So yeah, they're all hard, but that's the fun of it. That's the challenge. I love the challenge. I love doing something I've never done before. I love learning about something new. And F1 was my opportunity to be in the world of Formula One for 2 years and learn more about this sport than I ever thought I would, and had a blast making it.
We're about to get into F1, I swear. I have another question or two. If you could go back in time and do one more day on any of the things you've worked on, what would you love to spend 24 hours on the set of again?
You're just saying for the experience of it?
Yeah, like one more day. Or another part two of this would be like, I'd always wanted to tweak this one shot in this one movie. If I could go back in time, I would fix that one thing. And now mind you, it could be for any reason.
The Clue character was a struggle. Now, if I went back in time, I don't know if I could make it better with the technology of 2010. So that would be, the one thing that I always wish we could have gotten better. And really, it's just the one shot in the real world before he says goodnight to Sam, because that's him as a real person as opposed to Clue. Set that I'd love to be back on. What was pretty cool was the Sky Tower set in Oblivion, because we had done kind of the first version of front video projection, and being on that set with the clouds, drifting by that we had shot on a volcano in Maui. Being able to switch it between daytime and nighttime, it was a really amazing space to be in.
How did you end up being one of the people who wrote Twisters, or came up with the idea of Twisters? Did you know that he did this?
So I grew up in Marshalltown, Iowa. I grew up in Tornado Alley, and I grew up to every Monday morning at 7 a.m., like the first Monday of every month, they would test the tornado siren, which was only a block from my house. So, and I remember doing tornado drills in elementary school. So that fear of the tornado that never came to my town while I was there was something that resonated with me. So when I heard that Universal was thinking of making a sequel, I had an idea for the story, which was the movie that was made. This girl, Kate, who, has this kind of talent for chasing storms, but also is the only person to survive being hit directly by an F5 tornado, and her story of kind of coming back into that world. So I developed that story with Mark L. Smith, who's an amazing writer. Got to work with Frank Marshall, got to work with Steven Spielberg. Got the script to the point where Steven said, "We're making it, greenlit, let's go." I had told Glenn Powell that I, had another role for him because we had done Top Gun at that time. So had written that role with Glenn in mind, and it was at the exact moment that F1 was also greenlit. So I had to, Sophie's Choice, I had to pick one, I let Frank and Steven know that I was committed to making F1, and I was down the road with F1, and they wanted to make it, so I had to do it. And they really appreciated me telling them, because I could have, tried to hang on to it and asked them to wait for me, and then, but I didn't. I wanted to see that movie get made, and I thought Isaac did an incredible job making it, and Glenn and that whole cast, they just did an amazing job with it. So I'm so glad it got made. But yeah, I had to pick one, and now, a summer later, I finally got this one finished.
Last thing before we jump into F1, what is the status of another Top Gun?
Yes.
I made a lot of people happy by asking that.
So I've said a few things about it. We're working on it. Aaron Kruger's writing the script as we speak. The idea of it is very exciting. The scale of it is massive. It's going to make Maverick feel small in comparison, honestly. That's all I want to say. It's very exciting, but we're working on the script.
I have so many follow-ups, but let's jump into why we're here. By the way, thank you for everyone for indulging me in my, questions. So everyone here tonight just saw this in 4DX, and one of the things that I love about I just love seeing movies in movie theaters, and I'm just curious, did everyone enjoy the experience of watching this in 4DX? So,
did anyone think it was too intense? No. Too intense. Okay, two guys.
But fantastic film. I had to stand on the side just to appreciate the stillness of the picture. Fantastic, fan-fucking-tastic.
Thank you. Solar Sailor guy. Yeah,
So my question is, how do you work with the people who develop this technology to make it so it does what you want it to do while also in what they want to do?
Yeah, so I come into a theater just like this. They have a kind of a special theater, I guess, for filmmakers to work on the movies. I sit in the chair, and we watch the whole film, and they sit next to me, and I give them notes along the way. And a lot of times it's, things being like, during a dramatic scene, they might have some effects in there that I'll say, ooh, I don't want those there. I want people just to be kind of locked in here into the drama. I remember on this one, I said, oh, can we get the snow or the bubble effect, during, what was it? What scene is it? Do you guys remember which one it came out in? Oh, the confetti. Yeah, the confetti, the smoke. The first pass they did of Sonny when he's flying in the end, it was intense. It was like he was driving. I said, no, I want this to feel like we're floating, just like him. So we changed the motion of that. So yeah, we just go through and dial each effect going through the whole thing. I give them all the notes, and then they go back and they reprogram it. So usually it takes 1 or 2 sessions. They do a great job on the first pass, getting it kind of 80%.
So how long does it actually take? Like, are you watching? Like, talk a little bit about how long it actually takes for you to do something like that. Is it
It's real? Yeah, you're just watching the movie real time. So.
And are you pausing the movie and being like, or are you just taking
No,
notes?
they were taking notes, and I'm just calling it out,
Got it.
as we go and say, ooh, I don't know about that, or it would be nice if it was more like this, and they're writing as we're going. So, yeah, they're used, they do, they're great at their job, and it's just dialing it in, and yeah, it's fun.
Talk a little bit about, with 4DX and ScreenX both being at this theater, I don't want to pit them against each other, but what do you like about each format?
They're very different experiences. What I like is it's a different experience watching it in 4DX than ScreenX. ScreenX is more about the peripheral vision and the sense of speed, and if you don't want to move around, it's different. It's a different experience for what people prefer. I have I have some friends that will see everything in 4DX. They just love that sensation of being moved around and feeling it that way. And I know people who love ScreenX because they're maybe more visual in how they respond to things. So I think it just depends on the person, but I also like that it's a very different experience, and you can go in this format, you can go in that format, and have 2 distinct experiences with this film.
I'm going to do Sophie's Choice for you, and I'm so sorry. So your movie is playing in both 4DX and ScreenX, and you're picking one of the theaters. Which is your preference? No pressure.
Why do you make me do this?
You don't have to answer if you don't
I would
want
say, me personally, I'm a more visual person. So I'd say, back row ScreenX is kind of my vibe. But, in the certain mood, maybe I want to, if I was bringing my boys, I have, 2 teenage boys, 4DX all the way.
I think for me, it's movie dependent.
Yeah.
So I think that for certain movies, 4DX, other movies, ScreenX.
Okay. So which one would you pick for this movie?
Oh, see, this is, for this particular, being honest,
The shoes on the other foot.
no, but being honest, for this particular movie, both formats work. Because I would imagine.
You're cheating. You're saying both.
Oh yeah. By the way, you could have said that. No.
Okay, so what I've heard is.
I'm joking. No. If I had to go, no. I'm more. Okay, I get what you're saying, and now I'm understanding what I answered and what I should have answered. So for me, I am also a visual person, and I would go first time would be ScreenX, second time would be 4DX.
And apparently in Mexico and Asia, they have theaters where they have 4DX and ScreenX in the same theater. So if you want the full experience.
Yeah, we just learned that. And also, isn't it in Korea or Taiwan or something? Someone. Yeah, they mix
France,
the 2 things
there's 4 in
together.
France, so that's probably the closest one, except
Yeah.
for Mexico.
And-
Mexico City in France.
I would like to experience that actually. The
You should do it
ScreenX,
on the next time you do a junket, one of those.
but there's none in America yet.
No, but we'll make sure.
Oh, I
you'll
see what
go
you're
to a junket.
saying.
We'll take you to an international junket on the next.
I like how
one.
you're saying. Yeah. Well, anyway, let's move on.
So let's remember that.
Right.
We got to
yeah.
fly him to the next.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's jump into why we're actually talking. So this is one of my favorite films of the year. It's incredible, but I think the one thing that I really want to talk about is how breathtaking the editing is. Because what a lot of people don't realize is how every shot you see is being, obviously you have to decide what shot's going to go where and when you're going to cut and what you're going to show. And the editing in this is just spectacular. So talk a little bit about putting that together.
So credit to Stephen Mirioni, who was the editor on this film. Also cut The Revenant, Birdman, won the Oscar for Traffic, all the Ocean's movies for Soderbergh. Brilliant editor. Almost 2 years cutting this movie. Almost 5,000 hours of footage that we shot to create the 2.5 hours you just watched. The mixture of formats, some of the footage you're watching is real race footage where we reskin one of the real F1 cars with an Apex car. Some of the footage is our own footage on our Apex car shot on the track during race weekend. Some of the footage is an Apple camera on a real F1 car during a real race where every car needs to be reskinned. Just a mixture of all these different things, and being able to take real races and mix them with our footage to tell our story in the context of what happened in a real race was extremely complicated. You got to remember, when we're cutting it, none of the VFX are done. So we're looking at all the real race cars with no Apex car in it. Then we're looking at our Apex car with other Apex cars around it that haven't been changed into other cars. So it's almost impossible to watch unless you really understand the story and what's going on. So he had an incredible team underneath him. But it was an epic editorial job.
Was this more challenging than anything else you've done?
This was, the most challenging movie I've ever made, by far.
And that includes like everything or just editing?
Just as a whole, I think. I couldn't have made this movie had I not had the experience of making Top Gun Maverick. And so for me, every movie is a stepping stone and a learning. But Top Gun was a huge logistical challenge, and this took it to the next level, because now we're working in real live event in front of a live audience. I've got 10 minutes to shoot some of these scenes, you're at the mercy of the F1 weekend schedule. So it required us to move at a speed that I didn't think was possible for making a big movie like this in terms of getting your footage and getting out. I had an amazing crew, couldn't have done it without them, an amazing cast that, sometimes only had 2 or 3 takes of a scene where you'd normally have.
Can you sort of go a little more detail in that? Because I guess it's called like the white noise, but like I wrote white space, I'm so sorry, that where like you had literally minutes, because you're filming in the real places, the real F1 stuff's going on, and you literally have 1 take to shoot something.
Yeah, so like at Silverstone, you see Damson and Brad in the national anthem standing next to all the F1 drivers, right? That's shot for real while it happened. Then as soon as the national anthem ended, Brad and Damson turned and walked down the grid. I shot another scene with the reporter as we walked down, who was waiting as our cameras found him. And then I had Javier and Tobias at the end of the grid standing next to the Apex cars, and Brad walked right into that scene where he gets introduced to Banning. And these things all happened within 7 minutes with 140,000 people and cars starting and the races getting ready to go. So we had rehearsed the logistics of that for 2 weeks with a stopwatch, having all the actors in their marks so that we could pull that off in 1 10-minute window.
What happens if you didn't get that take?
I'd have to go back a year later and try again.
I mean, that's bananas.
So we got 3 takes at the scene at the end, and credit to my actors, Javier, Brad, and Tobias, for being able to pull that off in 3 takes. And my camera crew, who, I didn't want it to feel like a documentary either. Like, I didn't want it to feel like it was shot live, and kind of messy. So I wanted it to feel like the rest of the film. So having the amount of planning and placement of cameras and understanding the choreography of actors and where a camera could be so it wouldn't shoot another camera was a logistical feat.
I also have to commend Claudio on his amazing cinematography, but something that people might not realize is the fact that the F1 car, every bit of weight matters. And you guys placed cameras all over this thing. So talk about the technology and the invention that went on through Sony and Apple to pull this off.
Yeah, we had to invent these cameras. The cameras we needed to shoot this film did not exist, so we had to make them ourselves. So we spent a year working with Sony to take it's kind of the evolution of what we did on Top Gun Maverick. We took the camera system, shrunk it down, made it much smaller, much lighter, integrated all the batteries and the recorders and the transmitters into the body of the race car itself. So the only thing that was in front of the actors was basically the sensor of the camera and a very tiny lens. And then we worked with Panavision to develop a motorized head that allowed us to pan the camera left and right remotely. So that was all stuff that had to be created, engineered, and then built into this bespoke race car that Mercedes built 6 of them for us. So they were made those race cars were made just to film this movie. basically. And yeah, it was about a year of R&D just to figure out how to do it.
And talk a little bit how I believe F1 is actually incorporating some of your shots slash that. I think that one camera, there's a shot of you're looking at the race car, does a 180 back to Brad's face. Talk a little bit about pulling that shot off and what that took and how F1 might be stealing that.
Yeah, so that's our panning head, which is wirelessly connected to mission control. So I was sitting with Claudio in front of 8 or 10 monitors, because sometimes we'd have 8 cameras going simultaneously, and then we had these little servo knobs that we could turn that would pan the cameras. So I'd be it was like doing a live sporting event. I'm like calling out pan 2, pan 6, that kind of thing, with all the operators working them to get those shots. And I think F1 is now trying to figure out how to do the same thing during the race, which would be really cool.
But also, aren't they like doing a more wide shot now?
Yeah, so I noticed in the last race they're starting to widen out the lenses to be a little bit more like the F1 movie. So I don't know if that's our influence, but I thought it was cool.
So exactly. So one of the things that people, raise your hand. I'm just curious in this audience. Did everyone realize that Brad and Damson were actually doing all the racing? Because if you didn't realize that, they really were doing their racing, and which is like 180, 200 miles an hour. Talk a little bit about when did you first realize, okay, wait, they can actually do this? And also here's a real question. How hard was it to get insurance on this thing?
That's a whole conversation. When I first realized they could do it was, the day I took Brad and Lewis to the Porsche Experience Center, which is a track that's very close to here. It's in Carson. If you haven't done it, it's worth splurging on your birthday or something and doing a 2-hour session there. But I sent Brad and Lewis out on the track together, and Lewis was able to see how Brad can drive, if he could drive. And luckily for me and for all of us, Brad was just a naturally gifted driver because he rides motorcycles, so he understands racing line and grip and all those things. So Lewis knew he was teachable. And we did the same thing with Damson in England, sent him for a day of evaluation. And he didn't have the experience that Brad had, but he listened and he showed improvement. So both of them spent 3 months training with professional race car drivers, including Lewis Hamilton, to build themselves up to the level of a Formula 2 car, which is very intense. You're laying on your back when you're driving these things and pulling G's, so the neck is usually the thing that most people would have a really hard time with. Any of us would only last about 2 laps in an F1 car. And these guys had to drive for hours every day for this movie.
There's no part of that role that I could do.
Yeah. You could be a passenger for a couple laps.
No, I can't even do that. I'd throw up everywhere. No doubt. But what would have happened if they couldn't have driven?
Failure was not an option. They were going to drive, and they both did. They worked really, really hard, and pulled it off. And they're acting while they're driving too. So not only are they trying to keep the car on the track, but they're trying to actually remember their lines and play the scene. And it's astonishing, kind of what they were able to pull off.
Yeah, I'm blown away by it. Again, one of my favorite films of the year. So talk a little bit about the how long was the cut you had? The editing of the movie, because you always have deleted scenes. Did you end up with deleted scenes?
Yeah, we had a couple deleted scenes. The rough, putting the assembly was probably 2 hours and 45 minutes. The first preview cut was 2 hours and 37 minutes, and this cut's 2:27 up into the credits, the crawl at the end. So, it's just a natural process of slowly whittling the movie down, and sometimes you go too far, but it's a process. And doing test previews, which we did in this area in January and February, really help you kind of dial that in and figure out where the movie should sit.
Who do you actually trust for honest feedback? I don't mean like test screening audiences. I mean like filmmaker friends or people that you're willing to hear from. Or do you not do that?
I really do trust the audience because they're the only ones who have no agenda. at all. All they want to do is be entertained, and they'll tell you the truth 100% of the time. So it's great to have friends, and to show it to friends who make movies, but I just feel like we all carry all this baggage of knowing how movies are made with us, so it's very hard to get, I think, a useful opinion from someone who makes films, or people who live in this business. This is my 6th film, and I've learned that the audience gives it to you straight. So if they don't like something in the test screening, if you leave it in there, they're not going to like it when the movie comes out either. It's not going to magically fix itself. So it's up to you to decide what you want to listen to and how you want to change it.
Sure.
I don't think you should cater, and try to, but you should listen and decide if it's something you want to fix or not.
I've spoken to some people who, after a test screening, will, and this is, I swear, they'll go in a bathroom stall and sort of close the door and just sit there because people will come in from the screening and be brutally honest on what they just watched.
It's totally true. I mean, I don't know if has anyone here ever been to a test screening? Yeah. So
If you live in LA, you've been to a test screening.
So I'm surprised how most people don't know that when we do the focus group at the end, if you've been part of the focus group, the 20 people that stick behind, I sit in the row right behind all those people, and they never turn around to see who else is there. But I sit right there and I listen to everything with, take notes, and it's great. It's a great part of the process. And it was interesting on this movie because America is not a Formula One country. So we were showing it to, I think only 16% of our audience in the US kind of knew what F1 was or followed it. So we were showing it to people who knew nothing about the sport, which is a great way to test a movie like this. Then we also, for the first time, we did a test in Britain as well, which is a huge F1 country. So we got feedback from people who knew about F1 and people who didn't.
Were the scores similar in both places?
So this is very interesting. Scores in the UK are always consistently 10 points lower. And it's just a cultural thing, what Americans would call excellent, Brits would call very good. And so they tell you that, but it's true. It's exactly a 10-point difference.
I had never heard that before.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that either, because usually you don't test movies overseas, but we wanted to for this because of the nature of the story.
Let's get back to the insurance question. What is that like? Because, I mean, if you're not aware, when an actor starts making a movie, they are told you may not do this, and this, and forget about that.
Right.
It's like you're basically trapped.
Right. So at the beginning, there were a lot of people asking me in the studio and on the, producers asking me, do you really need Brad to drive? Like, do you have to? What if, we have the amazing technology, we got the volume, we've got amazing visual effects, does he really have to drive the car? And I said, yes, and Brad said, absolutely. That's why he wanted to do the movie. So the tricky thing with these cars is they actually are safer the faster you drive them. And that's very counterintuitive and very hard to explain to an insurance company. But they only work when you drive them fast and really push them. The brakes only work when they're red hot. The downforce of the car gets pushed to the ground the faster you go. So if you go into a corner at 160 miles an hour, the car is meant to stick and go through that corner. If you go through that corner at 80 miles an hour, it's getting no downforce and it could actually spin out and crash. So you have to drive fast to make it through the corner, which is the opposite of what we think of street cars, which is what we drive. So it took a lot of conversations with the insurance company, and our professional drivers explained them to get them to realize that Brad had to drive 160, 170 miles an hour in order to make it through the lap safely. And we got him there, but it was a long process.
And it was a premium. I'm joking.
Yeah, no, I didn't ask what the premium was, the insurance. I'm sure it was.
I'm sure it was not cheap. Like, there's no chance. So, talk a little bit about the success of the film, because I think it's at like 580 million now, which is Apple's, I think, biggest film. It's Brad's biggest film. It's not your biggest film, but like, what has it been like in terms of the success, and how happy is Brad? How happy is Apple?
Listen, anytime a film works, for me, it's just a sigh of relief, you know, because you just never know what's going to happen. You know, this is kind of interesting. My highest testing film that I've ever done is my lowest performing film from a box office point of view.
Is it
Can you name that film?
Only the Brave?
Correct.
Yeah. It's about firefighters. Who's seen Only the Brave? Oh, there we go.
So you just never know, like, you have no sense of how a movie's going to play. There's just until the movie opens. So it's been great to see how the film's been received. You know, it's an original film. This is not a sequel. This is not a reboot. These are not characters that exist in any other IP. Apple took a big risk with this film, making it, and I'm so thankful for that. But to have an original film, you know, play in a summer filled with you know, amazing films, but sequels and reboots and superheroes has been incredible. And I think, you know, that's what we want. We want a diverse slate in our movie-going experience. We want original movies, we want sequels, we want reboots, we want it all. But it's been great to see how the movie's played.
Well, there's something more than that, which is, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'll say it anyway. Like, I'm a voter in the Critics' Choice Award and awards, and I mean, for me, like, as I said, the editing, the cinematography, there's a lot of technical stuff here that I believe is going to be remembered at the end of the year and be talked about in award season.
Well, listen, it's not why I make movies, and I know not why any of the people who worked on this film do their job, but if they get recognized for all the incredible work they did, you know, behind the scenes, that would make me, you know, very happy.
Yes, I will. Yeah, we can move on to the next thing. So, what was it like for you in terms of? Yeah, got it. I'm getting timer updates. What was it like for you the first time? So, you're going to show this. There's a lot of F1 drivers in the movie. Everyone at F1 was involved in this movie. Without F1, this movie doesn't exist. Eventually, you have to show them the movie. What the hell was it like for you the night before? How scared were you during the screening? Like, take us through that.
It was nerve-wracking. I flew to Monaco because we were going to show it to them the night before the Monaco Grand Prix event started on I guess it was a Wednesday night. So I flew to Monaco, checked the theater. We actually built a theater in the concert hall in Monaco. It does not have a screen, so we had to put one in, and we put in Atmos. No, we put in 7.1, installed it in a concert hall. So I was nervous that wasn't going to work, but the team that did it did an amazing job. And yeah, we showed it to the 20 drivers, all the team principals, and the prince, who I sat next to.
The Prince of Monaco.
Yes. Which was
Of course.
incredible. The son of Grace Kelly. And I sat right behind Charles and Lewis, and I told the story in the other auditorium, but it was funny, you know, the drivers watched it like it was really happening. So, like, there's a scene at the end where Charles Leclerc gets passed by Sonny and Joshua. And when that happened, he threw his hands in the air in frustration. Like, you know, like, what the hell?
So he didn't know that was coming.
No, they didn't. They hadn't seen anything, you know. But it was really fun to watch them watch themselves, and, you know, whenever one of the team principals or one of the drivers would appear, you'd hear them laugh and, you know, give the other person a hard time. The Carlos Sainz line got a big laugh from them in the Vegas club. But it was great, and they were really supportive and really happy and loved. I think it's kind of weird, I think, for them to watch themselves be in a film. But it was great, and I couldn't have made this film without their support. So I was glad to make it through. But like we were saying, I had kind of the same experience on Top Gun, showing that to the Navy for the first time. So I was kind of used to the experience. Yeah, it was great. It was nerve-wracking.
When you think back on the shoot, what's like the day that you think you'll always remember? Is there an experience or a moment or something that happened that, like, you know, when you think back on something?
The podium sequence in Abu Dhabi was like our last day of the shoot, and our most ambitious, hardest thing to pull off, you know, to put Brad on the podium right after the podium sequence, you know, the real podium ceremony of the real Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So the crowd's there. I have to pull Charles and George back onto the podium to play themselves. I had 2 takes because George was really excited to they were both excited to douse Brad with champagne. So I told them on the first take, please don't do it, just so I have 2 chances, because once you cover Brad with champagne, I'm done. I can't shoot the scene anymore. So we did 1 take, and then the second take, they sprayed him with champagne, the crowd went crazy, and that's the take that's in the movie. So it was literally shot in like 5 minutes, you know, one of the most important and critical moments and an emotional scene in the film. So that was intense, but fun.
One of the things that I love about the movie, well, one of the many things, is how it's not about them winning the whole thing. It's just about trying to win one race. You know, talk a little bit about where that idea came from, and was there ever any debate about not doing that?
It all kind of came from me watching Drive to Survive during COVID, because the first season of Drive to Survive, they did not have the participation of Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes. So they were forced to focus on the last place teams. And in doing so, I think it made the series so much more interesting, because focusing on the guys that go out every week and lose is so much more relatable than watching someone go out and be the world champion and win every single weekend, which is kind of usually what happens. So I was intrigued by that notion of the last place team that's just hasn't even gotten a point yet, and it would be an amazing thing if they could win one race. And then that idea of, you know, what if a team owner had made a deal with his investors that he would fold the team if he didn't win one race in 3 years, and what if that was the ticking clock? So that's where that whole notion came from. And to me, I just think it's more relatable. You know, we can all relate to being losers, right? Because that's how life is usually, right? We don't win all the time. It's just that kind of sports movie thing where you're an underdog trying to pull something off, and going up against Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull is never believable that a team like this would be competing for a championship. You know, maybe in the sequel, but not in this one.
The sequel where you cross over with Days of Thunder.
Exactly. Yes.
So we're almost out of time, and I'm just curious, how did you decide on the very ending of the movie? Was it always that ending? Did you ever think it might be
Talking about Baja?
Yeah.
Baja was actually, in the first draft, it was the opening sequence. Baja was where we found Sonny Hayes competing in the Baja 1000, and it's where Ruben showed up and found him and plugged him in. But Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff told me, that's ridiculous. You can't go from Baja to Formula One. Like, there's just no way that any driver could do that leap. So I said, okay, well, where could Sonny come from? And they said, endurance racing, I guess, like Le Mans or Daytona. So that's where I switched the opening scene and put Sonny Hayes in the Daytona 24 Hours race, which is an endurance race. And then I decided to put Baja at the end as kind of his next adventure.
So in the first draft, what was the original ending?
Let's see, so what did I say? So he originally opened in Baja, and then, that's a good question, I'll have to go back and look. I think he just won, I think it just ended with him in the van pulling out the card and looking at it, and that was it.
Oh, it's much better now.
Oh, you like the button?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Don't you agree? Yeah. Okay, so
that was a good change.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'm going to call it. I think we've been talking for a long time.
Thank you so much for coming out, guys. Really appreciate it.
I was just going to say thank you to everyone for coming out. Thank you to Screen 3DX and 4DX. And thank you to Joseph Kosinski for making a fucking awesome movie.
Great job.